growing weary of running from room to room, practicing one-tooth insurance-driven dentistry? Then stay tuned for the latest episode of the Lionhearted, where Dr. Stephen Rasner will hand you the blueprint for what many call the gold standard of general practice dentistry.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Steve Rasner, and welcome to the Lionhearted Dentist. So here we are, guys. We're in almost the last quarter. I'm talking to you in late September, asking you how you're doing. For real, how are you doing? You know, I know that the people that listen to this podcast are a different cut than most dentists in the industry. I do believe that. I believe that you're pensive, that you think about things, and I believe that you really want change. That's why you listen to me, because you can tell in my voice if you're just listening on audio, and if you look at me on the visual portion of the podcast, you can see that I am just sincere. So I'm asking you now, because it's going to be the basis of today's podcast, to write to me with anything you got. If you're not happy with things, or if you're almost there, or if you have had a banner year. Some of you do that. So welcome to everybody from Australia to Brazil to all my European countries, particularly United Kingdom, Ireland. Guys have been downloading me like crazy. I love it. Thanks to all of you, because it's why I do this. So, I think about things all the time. Where am I at in my year? What else are you going to do? Why wouldn't you do that? Why would your profession, where you spend the majority of your week, most of you do. I guess some of you are working 3 days, and it's still 3 days of your week. Are you happy doing that? I gave a podcast just a few weeks ago about you can't be half in, and you can be half in. It's just not fulfilling. And that's true for any profession. So I wanted to base today's podcast on questions I received from our audience, because I know we all think it. Some of these anyway. The first one I'm going to give you, you're not going to think that if you're a practicing dentist, because it was from a dental student named Dan. And he asked a question I get all the time. And pardon those of you that are in full-time practice, but maybe even you'll get a pearl or two from my answer to him. And by the way, I don't pretend that my answers are absolute. It's just my opinion based on my years in the industry. You got to remember something when I speak to you. And this is at the center of this podcast. It's at the center of my career. I located in a portion of the United States that is broken down economically. And I've received bad feedback over the years from making that a point from the people in the community. Like, dentists actually went to the newspaper, I'm serious, and told them that they ought to do an article on how I denigrate the region that I'm in the United States, in southern New Jersey. And they did. So listen to me. Somebody actually came out, this is 25, 30 years ago, 25. And they were doing an interview with me, the paper, and it tricked me. They actually made me think that they were doing an article because a local dentist was fairly well known. And in the middle of the interview, they changed their tune and started asking me, is it true that you blah, blah, blah about our region? And over the years, I backed off on how I talk about it. The truth is the truth. It's not unique to me. Many areas in the United States and across the world have changed in the last 20 years. The area that I grew up in, which is where I practice, was a thriving community in the 50s and the 60s. I know that's crazy to some of you, the 1950s and in the 1960s and even the 70s. Now in the 70s, I was in college in dental school and graduated in 1980. And then, unfortunately, regrettably, the area started to be challenged. A major employer closed up their doors that employed a great percentage of the town. And it was called Owens, Illinois Glass Factory. It was one of the larger glass factories in the United States. And it closed. That started a cascade of negative economic fallout. We were all told that in the region, well, Coca-Cola is going to buy it up and Budweiser beer is going to take it over. And, you know, we all hoped, but it really never happened. And so when I speak to you, as I have in so many podcasts about the numbers and stuff that have happened, you know, I walked into an area that I grew up in, but it wasn't a great place to open up. It was really worse than I could even tell you over the years, and has never come back, even today. It has never really recouped. And when I talk about it, I'm talking about a 3 small town area that, like many of you have, they're all connected together. So within like a 20-mile radius, there are 3 towns that I used to pull from. Today I pull much further than that. I pull from other states. And I'm telling you this because I don't want, you know, look, no one has an easy ride. But surely my ride started out with great difficulty. And yet, in that region that exists today, it hasn't changed economically. You can look it up yourself. Cumberland County, New Jersey. They're my people. I'm from there. Of course I want no bad will on the region. But in spite of that, I've built a practice. I always call it, you know, a Las Vegas. You know, Las Vegas was built in a desert as a stopover for soldiers back in earlier times and became what it is today. And I guess it's another way of me saying to you that no matter where you're at, to some degree, if you follow the Lionhearted principles, you're going to be successful. But you really have to follow them, which requires a lot of energy. And I just said to some degree. I mean, if I'm a young student, if I had it to do over again, I don't think I would open up in a town that's strifed with unemployment, populations moving out of the area. I mean, I would investigate all that. You know, I speak to you because I speak to you often from what I think is a very powerful position, because I've overcome so many things and still have this practice that many of you would love to duplicate. I really think that. So my first question is from a D3 student named Dan. He doesn't know what to do, you know, 16 months from now when he anticipates he's going to graduate. And I have a very clear answer for that. I know a lot of dental students do listen to my podcast. So I'm going to tell you to do something I was not able to do. I would tell you, if it is at all possible, get a GPR. Hold on before you start sending me any bad email. You're not ready out of dental school. I mean, maybe a couple of you in each dental class, maybe. And it's not necessarily the top ranked student. Maybe you're able to come out, and I just think you would benefit from another year or 2 of live practice with patients. If you are a stud, which I wasn't, I couldn't get any GPR. You know, I went to the University of Pennsylvania. There was just too many students that looked better on paper than I did. And back in 1980, I don't remember having the opportunity to even get a general practice residency. But I will tell you, there are some amazing ones out there. I know there's one in Alabama, and you can write to me if you want to know more, where all the GPR students learn how to IV sedate, and they get training for that and are certified. Can you imagine? Right out of school. They do wisdom teeth, which I'm not a big advocate of. They do multiple implant surgeries. So really, I would be vetting all the possibilities if you are up there. And notice I told you, I didn't tell you to go get a really good job. And that's what I had to do. I had 4 different jobs. You know, if you don't know this by now, one of the reasons I went back to my hometown is because my father was a dentist there. A mom and pop dentist, very good dentist, but not, you know, not somebody who would be a Lionhearted dentist. I mean, ethical, clean, didn't have a very, very broad scope of skills, sent a lot of stuff out, probably everything out. You know, did crown and bridge and routine dental things. But what I did is I got several jobs. Now, I should address this. If you are like me and you're not ranked high enough to get an attractive GPR, then don't settle for one job. You're just not, you could be exposed to a really toxic type of environment. I would at least have 2 different jobs. I had 4. 2 days a week, one place, 2 days a week, another, maybe 1 day somewhere else. And I would use my time, even if I was working, as my GPR to get my procedures down faster, to learn the bad of an insurance-driven practice, which won't take you long, to learn the good of a mostly fee-for-service practice. And I would not accept any offers of partnerships or anything like that in my first 2 years. You're just too raw to know. I'm telling you, this is pretty solid advice. And you can write to me if you have a specific beyond what Dan asked me. And let me tell you one more thing. When you're 32 or 3, certainly 42, you're never ever going to look back and regret that you didn't jump right out there. Those of you that do a GPR, you'll never regret that. This career goes so fast, it's impossible to contemplate how much better off you would have been by spending a year or 2 in a GPR. That's what you should do, in my opinion. Okay, this is the next question. Is a question I get commonly, and I've seen it with my own eyes from colleagues. Our practice was killing it for 11 years, and now we are stagnant. What do you think? What would be my moves? And I've seen colleagues of mine in my own community have that happen to them, and that's a look in the mirror time. You know, what happens to some of us is 10 years, is 11 years in this guy's case, is a long time to be successful. And it's easy to become complacent. I've done it and put it on automatic pilot. You can never be complacent if you want long-term success. I'm telling you. I know a dentist in my town many years ago that he was the king. He was the best dentist in our area. But for whatever reason, he stopped taking courses. His practice slowed down as others around him, younger dentists like myself, got busier. And I remember, because I knew somebody that worked for him, that he actually was a 4-day-a-week dentist, which I propose you do. 5 days is kind of too much in this profession. Maybe not the first 2 years. When you're learning your ropes, that's your residency. And he opened up on Fridays and expected his staff to work for the same amount of money. Just, we have to work one more day if we want to keep this open. So those staff members that are listening right now, that's how cray-cray, how crazy some dental minds think. He wanted to open an additional day, but not pay his staff anymore. And the only reason I know that is some of his staff came to me because he didn't back down. So here's what you need to do in what I call a horizontal pattern of non-growth. And I want to tell you something. My practice, this is, everything I tell you is fact when it comes to my practice. I went through 29, think of this, 29, I didn't get to 30, consecutive years of increased growth and profitability. Can you imagine? That's using the Lionhearted dentist blueprint. Can you imagine if I told you, if I came in your practice as a consultant and I said, look, if you follow this, you're going to have from now to 2052 consecutive years of growth and prosperity. Just follow the pattern. But I did hit a downturn. I did. There was 3 recessions during those 29 years. So that was from 1980 to 2009. And I beat off 3 recessions. I remember thinking that I was recession proof, and I wasn't, because we had a very big recession in the United States in 2009, and that one hit me. And worse for me is I just bought my second dental building. And right after I did that, the recession hit. And we dropped almost 25% for 3 years. Just short of 3 years. It was brutal. And I had very bad back injury back then that took me out of work for 4 months at the end of all that. Talk about challenging. So what did I do? How did I come back with a vengeance, which we haven't looked back since 2011-12. It's now been 9 years. Not as great of growth as I had in the 29. Well, the first thing I did is I started to meet more with my staff. This is a really hard concept for those of you. And a lot of you hear me, and I think I should spend more time on this. I'm not going to do it in this particular podcast. But I think I should spend more time on how to run a meeting that's effective and worthwhile. That's why you guys don't run meetings. Because the thought of shutting down with your team there, think about it, while you're paying them, because you have to pay them, to be more organized is unthinkable to many of you, to be more productive. So I'm saying to you, the only way that you can implement real change is you have to have the key people together, or everybody together, depending how big your team is. And then you have to meet, and we met every 2 weeks for a year. We don't do that anymore, but I did. We met every 2 weeks for 1 year. And we rebounded 700,000 that year and came back to where we were. That's the absolute truth. So the first thing you got to do is you have to be willing to put down productivity for a minimum of 1 hour every 2 weeks to implement change. And again, I don't want to get too detailed because I've done it in other podcasts about this subject, but you don't go into the agenda cold into the meeting. That would be completely a waste. What you do is you write down what you want the meeting agenda to be. Do not allow anybody to start venting and talking about the problem is Sally, she's always a witch, and we all hate her. That is a private conversation that doesn't bring any productivity to the office. No, you got to examine in the office. And I wouldn't hold my first meeting until you took the time to do what I'm about to tell you. You have to look in the mirror and review what is wrong. Why are you not growing anymore? Are you not getting enough new patients? I want you to think about this for a minute. I mean, to me, everything I always give you is crystal clear and easy. I mean, look, that is a real thing. One of the possibilities is certainly that your new patient flow has decreased. Is that the truth? So if that's the case, you have to look at 2 things. You have to look at your marketing and branding. What are you doing? Some of you don't market and brand at all. I can remember when it was a no-no. I mean, I remember, thinking that I'll be ostracized by the dental community by advertising. And, those days are over, thank goodness. And you can advertise. And so that's a conversation for another day. But, we've had this conversation prior. What do you want to advertise? Well, you know that I think the number one thing that'll bring you patients is, I advertise no cost sedation. I'll say it again. I advertise no cost sedation. And I can't imagine that there's a more profound subject that the public could hear and then take action than that. There's nothing else. You think it's your beautiful work you do, which is, I get it. Why wouldn't that be? That you're immaculate, that you use a rubber dam, your direct fillings look like teeth because you care. You hear me? That you don't understand occlusion. The problem with that is there's no way to get that message into the community. There isn't. And even if you did, which I have, and you have too, the most gorgeous veneer makeover you've ever done, a lot of patients don't want to tell other people that. No more than the person that had plastic surgery, had a facelift done, wants to run out and say, hey, don't I look good? I just spent $20,000 on my face. But everybody understands screaming about the dentist in your community that doesn't hurt. And not only doesn't hurt, you sleep while he's working on you. It's funny, we're not allowed to say that in the state of New Jersey here in the United States, but it's exactly what they do with my sedation protocol. So I know it comes up in every podcast I do, but it's just true. That's the easiest thing to market. I would never tell you to market cost, like your crowns are way significantly less money than your competition. Or hours, that you're convenient. I mean, I would do hours if I was in my first year or 2 or 3 of a new practice. I would do that. But another thing you can market is trust and confidence. And that has to be much more creative. Some of you take me up on my offers. I've literally just recently sent a radio ad. I've found the music, or finding the music for the guy who's going to run my ad. It's his ad, and I want him to, all the way across the country. And I would do that for you. Sometimes I stumble and it takes a while for me to get back to you, but write to me, I'll help you. So again, the first thing I would do if I was in a practice that was doing well and now you're just not growing, well, that could be so many reasons. It could be that you need to look at your services, you the doctor. Are you just offering crown or bridge? Did you not offer or build on your services through CE over the years? I know that a lot of guys that listen to this podcast are in the process of adding skill sets, and you need to. You can't become a mega force by doing basic dentistry you're taught in dental school. Yeah, you will always reach a level of success if you're good. What's that even? What number is that? And nobody really knows. I mean, you talk to me, you hear the numbers I produce, and I can trace it all back, I tell you, every week, to sedation, to the ability for me to remove teeth and graft and do implant dentistry. Imagine this, along with whatever general dentistry I choose to do. I don't do any ortho. I did little bits in my career. I don't do pediatrics dentistry. I don't even do molar endo. And I don't even do wisdom teeth. Yet you're familiar with the numbers that I share with you once in a while. You hit a wall before you start having meetings, which you're going to have to do. And you can't just have them for a month or two. You got to buy in. You can't be half in, like you've heard me talk about. But before you start having those meetings are dated, by the way, and they're in your break room or given out to every staff member, so nobody can ever say to you, and by the way, I have this all in writing if you want every point. I know I'm giving you fractions of the points right now. So nobody can ever say to you, I didn't know there was a meeting today. That's not acceptable. This is not like a little, maybe we're going to get better from doing. This is a commitment from you and your team, because your team has a lot to benefit and a lot to lose if you stay in a horizontal pattern of non-growth. Everybody can win. Everybody can benefit if we all buy in to change. Well, the change comes from the meetings, and the first meeting is going to require some research. You got to enlist the help of your staff members that know. Maybe have a couple private short conversations with everybody, the hygiene team. You know, maybe their problem is your new patient experience and your case presentation has gotten stale. We've given you eons of information in these podcasts of how important that moment is and how to maximize it. So, you know, if your case presentation's lacking, then obviously you're not going to have as much case acceptance. If you're not even getting people in the door, then we got to look at your branding. You know, and your new patient experience may include what's your reception room and the office look like right now. Maybe time for some new wallpaper, paint, furniture, and things like this. Look, I never told you this was going to be easy. Never. But damn, it's worth it. 41 years into this, and I'm doing this with you on a weekend. It's beautiful out right now. I'm not out right now. I'm here talking to you because I care. I do. And I want you to benefit from what's available in this amazing profession if you are willing to give the work and put it in. But there's a lot of bumps that get along the way, as these letters to me indicate, and I'm kind of out of time. So next week I'm going to talk about other letters that I've gotten. For example, what are my first steps to get out of this insurance? I know you talked about it, Dr. Rasner. I don't know what to do. This one's good. I have a staff member who is just incorrigible, but she's very good, and I don't know how I could practice without her. What's your suggestion? This one's from a staff member that says, my doctor and practice seem in free fall, that he's no longer into it. I have an answer for all those. Anyway, guys, I hope you get me. I hope you write to me. A lot of you do. It seems like the podcast is downloaded more than ever. I wish so much. Really, you know what one of my wishes are? We'll see if Steve Rasner is who he says he is. That it's not ready yet. I thought the pandemic would be over by now, or would have waned enough to have a live, hey, let's meet on 2 days. I could bring in some guest people. I could certainly spend a lot of time with you. And I think that would tie this whole thing all together. I hope we can do that. Have a great week. Feel free to write to me, Dr. Rasner at AOL.com. See you then.